You're listening to Talking to Teens, where we speak with leading experts from a variety of disciplines about the art and science of parenting teenagers. I'm your host, Andy Earle. We're here today with Tanith Carey talking about feeling blah. Does your teenager ever seem to get into moods where everything is just kind of meh? Things are okay, it's fine, it's no big deal. Well, that might seem like a normal state for teenagers, but it also might be related to a condition known as anhedonia. Anhedonia is a real thing that psychologists have been investigating, and it's what happens when the joy kind of gets sucked out of life. Unfortunately, as Tanith Carey has found, anhedonia is becoming much more prevalent among teenagers today. This can make things really difficult for parents who just want our teenagers to be happy. It turns out that what we need to do as parents is actually teach our teens the skills that they need to be happy. This is especially difficult when we have teenagers who are avoidant or who don't want our help. And anhedonia can make this a lot more common. When things get really bad, it might seem like your teenager is struggling with some kind of a deep existential crisis. If you're in this situation and you're looking for the right words to cheer your teenager up, the answer might not be about what to say, but really what to do as a parent to help your teenager learn the skills to manage their own emotional state. The key comes in understanding the 3 phases of the reward system. We're going to talk about all of that and a whole lot more on today's episode with Tanith Carey, the author of the new book, Feeling Blah. Tanith Carey is a writer who has written 13 books on psychology, mental health, adolescence, and many other exciting topics. And her works have been translated into 35 different languages. Her articles on health and psychology appear in media outlets around the world. And this is her second time coming on the Talking to Teens podcast. Really excited to speak with Tanith about all that and a whole lot more. Tanith, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We have the book, Feeling Blah. Pretty excited to talk about that. We got a pretty jam-packed episode today, so I'm really excited. Thanks for coming on the show.
No problem. Good to be here.
And you've been on the show before. This is a repeat. Yeah, you had a whole book about teenagers, as I recall, or on adolescence and adolescent psychology, and it was really beautifully illustrated. So I have a whole previous episode. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. Do it. Now we are talking about your new book, which is Feeling Blah. So, wow, what a topic.
Time to bring into our mental health conversation.
Well, I thought it was really interesting because we talk a lot about teenagers on this podcast. I think a lot of what you talk about in the book is stuff that parents complain about their teenagers a lot. Like, school is okay. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's all right, I guess. Yeah, practice was fine. It was cool. I don't know, whatever. And then just kind of this sort of everything is kind of okay, sort of, I don't know. That's a lot of what you write about in this book, Feeling Blah. What does that even mean? Or what does it mean to feel blah?
Right. So, the book you're right, it's called Feeling Blah, and it's why anhedonia has left you joyless and how to recapture life's highs. So in this context, feeling blah is about anhedonia, which is a state of loss of enjoyment and things you used to enjoy, and also a lack of motivation. So you can get very stuck in anhedonia. And the reason I wrote this book was that I was amazed. There's a lot, like the clinicians know about anhedonia, and it's well known as a symptom of major depression. But there's more and more research that says that actually you can have standalone anhedonia.
Yeah, it's its own thing. It's not just kind of a symptom of depression, but you can not be depressed, but still feel blah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In fact, we know a lot of teenagers who seem to be feeling that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a great shame. Across the first world, we're in a mental health freefall. And anhedonia and blah can be a precursor to depression and a waiting room and a purgatory. I think in relation to parenting, because obviously that's what I also write about, I think it's really important that we show our teenagers how to flourish and not to languish. Because I think what might be happening, and there's many factors in the fact that teenagers don't seem to be as happy as they used to be. And that's been happening really concurrent generations since the 50s. There are many factors, but one of the ones I'm going to talk about is the education system. I think as a parent, you have a child and then they come into the world and they're joyful and there's novelty and there's excitement. And there is something about growing up, obviously, but I think that the joy is being squeezed out of our young people far too early. And some of that is the fact they are squeezed through pressure cookie cutter education systems. Instead of seeing hobbies as an expression of talent or interest, they're seen as extracurricular activities to do for college applications.
Fills up your resume so you can apply to colleges, right? I thought that was the whole point of hobbies, really. It's something else, another line item to put on there.
Yeah, but I wonder if we asked our grandparents, they probably had legitimate hobbies,
Or can we just do things because we enjoy them? Can we have fun? No. Really interesting topic that you have here, because I just think that what you're writing about, this feeling of anhedonia that's really becoming more and more prevalent in the workplace, I think is also becoming really, really prevalent among teenagers. And we just hear this over and over from parents that their teens are just kind of whatever. Yeah, it's okay. Don't care. I think, really, what you're hitting on here is just growing. More and more people kind of are experiencing this. And it's interesting, you go into kind of the evolutionary history of anhedonia and where maybe it comes from in terms of our psychology.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I also tackle a lot of the neuroscience as well. And I'm looking exactly at that point. Why are we feeling more blah? What is it about modern life which means that we are finding it hard to stay in joy and just enjoy our life? And I think what I wanted to do with this book is add some more nuance to our mental health discussion, because we talk a lot about depression and despair at one end, and we talk about this kind of unicorn state of joy and happiness at the other. But what about the middle gray area where a lot of
everything else, day-to-day life.
So, they say, unless you know the word for it, it's more difficult to fix it, name it to tame it. So anhedonia is a word that I just wanted to bring out into the public discourse. Because, when I discovered it, I was genuinely surprised. I was like, oh my God, there's like so many thousands of research papers on this. Well, how come I've never heard about this? Because obviously, I recognize I was in a state of blah. And I think when you're in a state of blah, like maybe as our teenagers are, they don't think it's something that you can do anything about. They just think it's a state of being. And I think that's a great shame, because what we need in the world is people who are flourishing, who are making most of their potential. When people are in blah, their focus tends to narrow. When they come out of blah, their focus starts to widen. There's a lot of this work been done by Professor Barbara Fredrickson.
Yeah, once you start to feel more positive emotions, your whole mindset expands and you start to see possibilities where there weren't possibilities before, and start to make connections where you didn't see connections before. There's so much positive that happens when you start to feel more positive about what's going on in your life. I just think really, a lot of what you're talking about is so endemic of the teenage years. And really a lot of it is the fact that as teenagers, we're kind of forced to do things that necessarily things we chose for ourselves, or things that we want to study or learn about or are interested in. It's just kind of put on our plate or handed to us. God, I don't know, especially after reading your book, I really feel like that's a big problem.
I mean, what I talk about in the book is also the concept of spark, and that is the idea that every young person has an innate talent or something they're drawn to and they would do anyway without grown-ups getting involved. And you can often see it in childhood, in the way kids play or the way they relate to their friends and stuff like that. And I just think the concept of spark, again, it was actually a concept sort of developed in America, but it seems somehow to have been lost, is that I think we need to introduce this back to our adolescents and our teenagers, and just like, is it communicating with others? Is it being a good listener? Is it being able to grow plants? Is it being great with animals? Is it being good with music? Is it, everybody has one? And that sounds a bit pie in the sky, but actually, if you think about it, you have one, I have one, and I think we need to give our adolescents permission to look inside themselves, do some introspection, and just go, okay, what's yours? How do you want to develop it? Even if it doesn't turn into a career, it will give them joy, fulfillment, creativity. I think what I'm trying to say with this book is that the elephant in the room here is that we are facing a very uncertain future on this planet.
And that we think it's normal, or we think it's okay or acceptable to sort of not be that excited about what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that what we need, like, we have a lot of challenges to face. We need motivated, flourishing young people who understand the pressure that modern life is having on their brain chemistry, and who understand some neuroscience and know that they are not stuck here. I think what I really enjoyed about the book was talking to some of America's top neuroscientists about the neuroscience of joy. Because if you ask the average young person, like, you know, they'll say they want to be happy, but like, if you say to the average young person, how is happiness formed in the brain? They don't know. Most grown-ups don't know either.
What I think is so interesting, because what I find is when you ask parents, what are your goals? What do you want for your child? By large, the most common thing they say is, I want them to be happy. I want to be happy. But yet, what does that actually look like on their neurological
don't
level?
really know how to make their kids happy, and the kids don't know how to make themselves happy because they don't understand like the working of the reward circuit. They don't understand, in fact, that joy is not just one thing. It comes in 3 parts. I mean, this was a wonderful thing that I heard from Professor Kent Berridge, who was really helpful to me on that in that brain chapter. It's like, you know, joy is the anticipation, so the building up of dopamine. It's the enjoyment in the moment. So then you get the release of that dopamine and some opiates and all the rest of it. And then after that, there is also the third stage, which is remembering that event or what made you happy, so you want to do it again. So it's just like simple, like some more understanding, saying, oh, I want to be happy, but like, what makes you happy? What is going to go in your brain that's going to actually give you that experience? Because the fact is, for like adolescents, like, life is stressful. There's a lot of pressure. They have a lot of cortisol raising in their brains. They have to get this mark, that mark. They have to achieve. They have to look good. They have to keep up on social media. They are overloaded with cortisol. You know, there are no psychological kind of issues which don't have raised cortisol implicated in them in some way. So we need to accept that modern life is difficult and to give them the tools and the understanding to push back and their entire lives. And I think now is the right moment. Like, adolescence is a great time to kind of get these ideas in place.
It totally is. It's such a time of kind of like you're starting to gain perspective. And we talk about metacognition, this opening up of the prefrontal cortex and starting to understand, to think about the way that you're thinking, or to understand your own kind of problem solving abilities and see that, hey, wow, I tend to kind of approach problems in this way or in that way. And wow, that maybe is a little limited.
That's a really good point about metacognition. Yeah, absolutely. Just the right time to introduce it. Yeah, because otherwise what you get is you have a lot of people entering the workplace, and the people who I get reactions from the book, and it's not just the older people who've been in the workplace a while, it's young people who get there and go, oh, I'm really burnt out. I'm really, I don't see the point of this. So no wonder we have the Great Resignation. No wonder we have people like quitting on TikTok, because this stuff they've been told all their lives, you know, from this age, you're going to have to aim for this college, you're going to have to aim for this grade. They get there, then they're just put into more competition and more pressure, and they just don't want any part of it, you know. So I think that we need young people who can think in a bigger way about what success is and what happiness is.
We need to teach young people the skills to be happy. We think of happiness as this thing that hopefully just kind of magically happens to you. If things are going well in your life, you'll be happy and you have friends and else. But there's actually research on what does it take. And psychologically, what does it look like to be content with your life versus not to be content with your life? And we actually have some information about what that looks like.
Yep, absolutely. So the great thing is we know more about the working of the brain at any point in history. So although we're probably living in more challenging
pressure is on. You have no excuse not to be happy and fulfilled and excited about every day.
Well, I'm gonna say like that, but like, you know, like we can see joy being formed in the brain. So it's time to harness that knowledge and use it to push back. Because otherwise, are we going to continue this mental health free fall?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good idea. It's time for a pivot, quite a radical pivot, I think, definitely.
So what do you think that parents need to teach our teenagers, or what do we need to change in the conversation with teenagers to really get them thinking about what it is in their life that makes them happy and how they can pursue that?
You know, the first thing I would like parents to spend more time with is encouraging young people how to notice how they feel and not telling them how they feel. Because it's only when we notice that we don't feel good or why, or we have some self-awareness, that we can actually do some steps. And I think parents need to be prepared to listen to uncomfortable emotions, sit with their kids and just let them process. And I think that they need to give their kids a stronger emotional vocabulary. I think this is more challenging in boys than girls. You can speak, sometimes I speak to adolescent boys and they just simply don't have the words to describe how they feel. Unless they have that interoception, that noticing of what makes them feel bad, how are they going to know what's going to make them feel good? So that's what I'd like to start with from parents. And then I would like them to bring a kind of growth mindset to happiness. You're having a bad day. It's kind of a cliche now, but like this feeling will pass like the clouds, or this anger will settle like the glitter in a glitter dome. So you're actually giving a really good examples for parents about teaching their children how to manage their emotions. Because otherwise, what I think young people think is all out of their control and they can't do anything, and then they think deeper. And I think it's just like giving them some sense and understanding of how their brain works, how their happiness chemicals work. Obviously, the brain is a highly complex organ and there's a lot we know, but like just some basic kind of like what the main chemicals are, what the stress hormones are, what can affect it. For example, you can bring all sorts of stuff into it. It's difficult talking to adolescents about diet, but maybe a value in your home that what you eat is also what makes you feel good. You know, having a rainbow of food also helps you produce serotonin in the gut. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but like exercise, like, oh, don't we all know we're supposed to exercise? But like, you know, we now know that exercise is better than antidepressants at changing mood. And that's just incredible, isn't it? Do you know? All that kind of stuff. So I think that's important. I think we have backed our children into like, you know, because I've also written about competitive parenting, and it's not actually competitive. It's not the parents' fault. The school system, the educational league tables, globally, locally, you know, we've all been caught up in this massive machinery that's supposed to sell success. But, you know, our kids are not successful because they are struggling so much. I'm not sure how your stats are in the US, but like in the UK, you know, it's not like something like 1 in 6 or 1 in 8 children over 14 has some kind of, you know, mental health challenge. We have to kind of turn this around in a big picture way. So the book is really about more than Anhedonia. It's more about facing up to the challenges. And, you know, also, what example are we setting? This is part why I want to come out. What example am I setting to my 2 children if I can't enjoy life? So we also have to overcome our own blah so that we show that life is worth living, how to enjoy it, set a good example, make time for our hobbies, our self-care. Yeah, like time was when we can be together, you know? So yeah, reprioritize. And I think is really important.
And it feels like that really just it all goes together, because as parents, we're so concerned with trying to get our teens talking. And I hear parents so often, you know, my teen just says, hey, my day was fine. Good. Yeah. Whatever.
That's really good point, Andy, though, isn't it? Because it's a communication issue between the parents. Is the teen, I'm just suggesting, throwing out there, are they just closing that conversation down because they don't want to throw anything outside there in case they're criticized? I think that sometimes obviously we as a generation of parents, we tend to be intensely worried about our children. So we're coaching and guiding, but like to the sensitive ears of a teen, they hear it as criticism. So,
whenever I throw anything out, it's going to come back at me as something I did wrong. So maybe I just shouldn't even just say anything. Yeah, it's fine. It's okay. It's whatever. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. I think that's so true. Yeah, obviously, if that's what we're getting from our teenager, yeah, it was okay. It was fine. It's not a big deal, whatever. Then we've trained them somehow in some way to respond that way when we ask them, how was it or whatever. The answer is not that your teenager is crazy or that they're just not communicative, but I hear this from a lot of parents, so it's something about the way that we're conditioning them to not respond with a lot of words, or to be really to just say, yeah, it was okay. I think teenagers are really smart and savvy. I think that if that's a response you're getting from your teen, then probably they've realized that's the best way to respond. When mom asks me, how was your day or whatever.
Yeah, why didn't I narrow the target for like comment or criticism? Why didn't I just not get
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah, it's fine.
given as something they could improve? Also, like if your kid comes home from school and they've like been in a classroom with, I don't know, 20, 30 people they didn't choose, they've been told what to do by adults all day. It's just like when you come home from a long day at work, you don't want to be downloading what happened, because also your parents wouldn't necessarily understand what the dynamics of your school life are like. So, I think it's always that thing. As soon as kids come home, don't instantly ask them what happened.
I also feel that that's a gendered thing, and I don't know why it is, but it's always moms that I get that are saying, hey, I can't get my teen to talk to me. I can't get my teen to open up to me. At the end of their day, I just want them to just tell me what's happening. It's never dads. Dads are never like, hey, how do I get my teen to talk to me and open up? But also I think it's because that like there's a gendered sort of way that we deal with stress where females are more conditioned to verbalize and talk about things that are happening, whereas males are more conditioned to internalize and not talk about what we're struggling with or what's going on.
I also think that dads instinctively know that just being together, like,
yeah, it's not that big a deal. Just just kind of just hanging out and just saying, hey, what's up? Hey, how's it going? Yeah, is enough sometimes. It's all you got to do, really. Just what's happening?
By me, let's be together. Let's play a video game. Let's go out into the garden and play with the dog.
Yeah. Go for a walk or go do a thing, or I rolled a cigarette. Do you want to go? Yeah, I'm gonna go for a walk, and just you want to talk or whatever. It's not like that big a deal, but also there's not that much pressure or something, and I think that's so important for parents is if you want your teenagers to talk to you about these blah kind of feelings that they're having, or just kind of feeling about life, there has to be a feeling that they can share that and they can talk to you about that, and that I don't know, you're not going to necessarily pounce on it or make it into a big deal or something like that. It's just okay, it's not a big deal. Yeah, lots of people feel like that, and let's keep talking about it. Let's keep checking in on it.
But that's also a really good point, because I think that people don't speak about anhedonia and blah because they think, oh, they don't feel entitled to. They feel not depressed. I'm functioning. I'm going to school. I'm not in my bed curled up in a ball crying. I'm getting off.
I noticed that in your book a lot. It's on the way to depression, but it's not depression yet. So this isn't depression. Yeah. So it's not that big a deal. Maybe it's easy to kind of sweep it under the carpet or something as not that big a deal, because we have terms for the more advanced stages of this, and if it's not there yet. Oh
yeah, like some people said, oh, I'm pathologizing it. I'm not pathologizing it, because the word is already out there. I am bringing it out into the open, because I think that if we are living, I don't think we should be accepting blah as the status quo, as many of us do. Teens should be accepting it as the status quo. Like what, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids are like going, oh, this is my life? Like, no,
yeah, that's not what life is. Yeah, but I think it's so easy. It gets so normalized in modern culture. And you talk a lot about all of the psychology behind that, how technology is driving some of those feelings or ideas. But it seems like we really get this feeling like, yeah, so what? Yeah, okay, yeah, you're not that excited about life. So what? Nobody is, yeah, deal with it. Not a big deal.
I really don't think blah should become the new norm. But if you look at the stats, such that you can see that, languishing is, as defined by Corey Keyes. He started doing some research this on the 2000s, and he saw it double. He saw the state of languishing. I think I'll check the figures, but go from 12% in 2000, and by 2 decades later, it was up to 21%.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's even greater in the workplace, but obviously the questioning was slightly different. But, when you look at, there are some statistics that go it's across the generation. So there's one set of data I quote in the book, and it's got millennials, 30% languishing, Gen Z, 26%, Gen X, 21%, and baby boomers actually the least 14%. But it's starting. I think you could understand blah a little bit in the context of middle age, where there are hormonal shifts, where estrogen is affecting your dopamine, or testosterone is falling, and that's also affecting your happiness chemicals. But I don't really feel that we should be accepting this in the adolescent years, because otherwise the kids are not they're not starting off life in a strong position. We have to have a next generation who's going to have to be so creative, so full of possibility, and so full of hope. We really need some hope.
We're here with Tanith Carey talking about what to do when your teenager seems to have lost their joy for life. What can we do as parents when we have a teenager who may not be depressed, but they're definitely not happy and excited about life? This is a condition known as anhedonia, and we've got the answers on the back half of this episode. Take a look at what's coming up in the second half of the show.
Well, the Greeks got it right, didn't they, so long ago, by saying that true happiness comes from a life of meaning. And you can have fun, but it can be frivolous. But that, or the good we feel today can be the happiness you feel tomorrow, or good you do. Maybe we need to remind our kids that doing stuff for other people is not in a selfish way, but is one of the best ways to make yourself feel good. If we accept that the brain is not a happiness machine, then at least that gives us a more realistic baseline to work with. The knowledge of how happiness works will mean that we can at least meet it. We can basically catch up with what modern life is doing to our brain, because at the moment there's a big lag, and that's why so many of us are depressed. So we need to close that gap, is what I'm saying. We tend to think that dopamine is the molecule of reward, but actually it's the molecule of anticipation. Basically, dopamine is there not to make you happy. It's there to make you get up and get your survival needs met. The brain is not a pleasure generator. It was never supposed to be a pleasure generator. It's a survival machine. Compared to other primates, we have more dopamine circulating in our brains. And that is possibly what made us the most successful species.
Want to hear the full episode? Head over to talkingtoteens.com/register for a free trial of our premium podcast. You get exclusive access to loads of great content with no obligation. And your membership supports the work we do here at Talking to Teens. Get started today with a free trial over at talkingtoteens.com/register. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.